All right, welcome up. Excuse me, welcome back, everybody, to the ATB NFL Live Show. Joining me today is just Tony. Unfortunately, Zach is going through some stuff. We'll just leave it at that, but hopefully, we'll see him back next week. But either way, we want to make sure we're back this week because, as always on the show, we do have our bye weeks that we like to throw in for one reason or another.
We like to
But
keep
we
you guessing.
Exactly. Like, will they be on? Will they not be? Well, this week we are on. So we'll be going over all the games this week, doing our normal, interesting and must watch games. But first thing I want to do, Tony, and it's at this point in the year where you want to try to do this, I think, just to kind of get your thoughts out on how the season's gone, what you're looking forward to, what things have happened, just observations you've made. It's the halfway point, right? So this is where we can start to kind of really know what these teams are, what they aren't, what these players are, what they're not, and wanted to just talk through some of the things that you've seen or that I've seen as well, and just see where we're at with this season so far. So I want to kick it off with you first. What's one of your big takeaways that you've had so far this year?
So there's two like key ones that I have, so it's a struggle to pick between them. But I
Okay.
think the first one to start with, defense is back. It's
Yes. Yes.
the past few years, really like starting with the COVID year and then
Mm-hmm.
the 2 years after that, it really felt like offense was untouchable in terms of like, yeah, there were some great schematic defensive coordinators out there who could stop an offense any given day, but it was all offense.
Yeah.
The best teams in the league had explosive offenses, just so far above the rest that they felt like just godlike. Like we're talking like 2021, like Allen Mahomes, that game. Like we're talking
Yeah.
about the Bengals with the Jamar Chase, like his first year, all the offensive explosion that came out of that. We've just been in a golden age of offense,
Yeah.
and this year the best teams, yeah, they have good offenses, but those offenses are struggling compared to their previous versions. It's the teams showing up with defenses that are really just throwing a wrench in expectations for this season. You have two historic, it feels like, defenses in the Browns and Ravens so far this year, and then a bunch of other just elite units. So yeah, defense is back, and defense matters this year. And personally, I'm very sad that my team decided to injure their entire defense and not be in on the fun. But defense is back. That's my first take.
Yeah, I totally agree with that one. And I almost wrote that as one of mine, but I figured you might take that one, honestly, because it's been a big sticking point throughout this year. It's just the level of play we've gotten from a lot of defenses, and even some defenses that are more boom or bust, or kind of, they might give up some yards and stuff like that, but they really hunkered down in the red zone, the type of like bend don't break defenses. It feels like the offenses aren't ahead of the curve for the first time in a long time. And I feel like that's kind of where we're at, where defenses have figured out ways to kind of mitigate some of the offense explosion that we've seen the past couple of years. And I wonder, will this last for several seasons? I doubt it. It just feels pretty hard to stay ahead of the curve too long. Yeah. Like, especially with the
NFL is
rules.
cyclical.
Exactly. But especially with the way the rules have skewed towards offense over the past decade. Like, I feel like teams will start to figure these defenses out a little bit, and it might even happen by the end of the year. But so far, I do totally agree that the defenses have kind of been reigning supreme so far this year. I'm kind of getting into that though. So the AFC North, you've mentioned the Browns and Ravens. They have been unbelievable on defense, especially. AFC North is elite, right? This is the first team or first time we've seen a division this late in the season have four teams all two games above 500 since they realigned the divisions. Right? Like, they are having a historic start. However, I do think there's clearly two teams that are cut above the rest overall as football teams. And even though it took them a while to get there, I do think it's the Ravens and the Bengals who are the scariest two teams in that division. As much as I hate to say it, the Browns and Steelers are hanging around. They're definitely, obviously, they're both 5-3. Their defenses have kind of carried them for the most part. But the Bengals, with a fully healthy Joe Burrow, and granted their weapons are a little bit banged up right now, but assuming they can get back to full health, and the Ravens right now, man, like, those two teams are the scariest in our division and two of the scariest in the league, in my opinion. Like, that's kind of where they're trending, especially the Ravens. I know the Steelers beat them, but boy, did it take a whole lot of just not good stuff from the Ravens for that to happen. Like, let's be honest about it. Not something I'm expecting to happen. It's the second time around. But yeah, as far as the AFC North goes, I want to start off with that because of, obviously, me focusing on the Steelers. They are definitely lagging behind those two, I would say.
Yeah, I completely agree. And it's funny. So I said that I had two that I wanted to, that I was like close between. they were the first and third items on my list. The second item on my list was AFC North hype was legit.
Yes.
This division, man, is so fun to watch.
It's insane. It's insane.
Because they all bring that defense in one way or another, shape or form. And then you have a couple of really explosive offenses and then a couple of just purely inept offenses, but it all works. They're like you said, they're all above 500. You're 100% right. I think the Ravens are playing the best football in the NFL right now. I think they feel like a team more ready to compete in January and February than previous versions of the Ravens did, even when they were at their heights. Like this feels more real, feels more applicable to the modern NFL. Yeah. And then the Bengals, we know who they are in January and February, and they're clearly heating up right now. So yeah, you're right. Those two are the true Super Bowl contenders, but the division as a whole has 100% lived up to the hype.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I'm curious to see how things shake out down the stretch as far as who ends up bringing up the rear and what does the rear even look like for this division? Is that 9-8, 10-7, God forbid? Like, if that's the case, then we're going to be in for a rough playoff seeding situation in the AFC. So right now, all four of them are in the playoffs if they had ended today, which is insane. So we'll kind of see how it goes from there. But my next one here, the Panthers need a complete reset if they want Bryce Young to work out. That's where I'm at right now. I think that Reich gone. I do not appreciate anything he's accomplished in this season. I don't think he's on the right track. He's already given up play calling duties at one point during the season. It's just not working. And this is the most disappointing thing for me is like Bryce has obviously not played well. It's the fact that I thought Reich, when we were talking about this team going into the season, I thought he would bring a level of competency to everything, kind of bring the floor up of a team that wasn't the most talented necessarily. There's been injuries on defense, obviously, and there's been issues galore on this team. But I just have not – I don't see it with him and this team right now. I really wonder if he's going to be one and done, and I kind of feel like maybe it would be the best thing for this organization to go in a different direction despite what they wanted to get out of him. That's where I'm at with it right now.
Yeah, I see it pretty differently. Obviously, things aren't going well, and the Panthers fans have a right to be extremely emotional seeing three. Wait, how many rookie quarterbacks have looked better than Bryce Young? It's at least three.
Yeah, at least three. Yeah.
Honestly, Clayton Tune's single drive looked better than anything I've seen out of Young yet, too. So it's I didn't mean Clayton Tune. I meant Jaron Hall out of Minnesota. Clayton Tune. We saw what he could do. We saw what he could do. Yeah, no, but so. Panthers fans have a right to be an emotional, and David Tepper is an emotional guy. He's fired head coaches 2 months after hiring them with his MLS team. He is not competent at running an organization, so I could see what's, but I don't see it as the best path forward for them. Frank Reich has his flaws. He's not one of the scheme guys, right? He's one of the consistency in terms of approach on offense guys, and he did something very smart this offseason. He went outside of his tree. He hired Sean McVay's right-hand man, Thomas Brown, and he said before the season, at some point this season, I will be handing off play calling duties once I feel Thomas Brown is ready. So I'm not going to read into that anything more than this was the plan. The product on the field hasn't been the plan, but honestly, it's on everybody. The offensive line that was supposed to be a positive for them has sucked. That's not Frank Reich's fault. No. Ike Ekwonu deciding he didn't like the second half of last year where he was good and wanting to regress back to the first half, that's on him.
That's disappointing. Yeah.
The receivers, trash. Yeah, that's fair. But is Jonathan Mingo worse than Noah Brown, or is he the same player with a different quarterback? There are players. We saw Andy Dalton come in and pass for 300. We've seen Bryce Young develop tendencies that he never had. And yes, I would like to see Frank Reich working closer with him to iron those out and make sure that he's not doing those things. But when everything is going to shit, it's all going to shit. And I don't think adding more instability, more chaos, and giving Tepper the chance to go out and make another Matt Rule type of hire. Because Frank Reich, he might not be an elevator, but he's an NFL football coach. You know that you have an adult in the room, and you know that at the very least, you're not the bottom of the league in terms of coaching. strive for more, but I don't think that Bryce Young's development would be aided by getting rid of Reich this early in things. It's just it's a terrible roster, and they've got a lot of work to do on that front, and the vibes are terrible, and that's understandable, and everybody's upset, and that's understandable, but as much as it's like not everybody wants something to happen, I don't think that going in and blowing it all up is the solution.
I do wonder. So I get what you're saying with that. I wonder for me, like, is it maybe the GM that maybe needs to go in this situation?
I could get behind that
Because
the handling of the Brian Burns situation is fireable offense on its own.
Yeah, a lot of what's going on decision making wise, they have good players on this team when they're healthy, but they're not they haven't been very healthy. Like JC Horn, especially, it's really disappointing with him because he just can't be on the field.
Yeah.
When he is, he's good, but like it feels like something needs to happen to me. And like maybe it isn't the coaching situation, maybe it is the GM situation. Maybe that would be the thing that could spark things a little bit. But they have a lot of work to do to get this to a point where Young actually has a chance to even if he develops himself, like will he have the opportunity to really do a whole lot? Because he's not a player that's probably going to be able to overcome this type of stuff. And it is disappointing to see him develop the tendencies you're talking about that you just didn't see with him at Alabama. Like one of my things about him that I like so much is I felt like he is a very high floor player, but he also has the playmaking instincts that he showed in college that make me think he could elevate above that. He hasn't really had the chance to do that if he wanted to anyway, but he also hasn't done the floor stuff that I wanted to see from him. And that's, I think, maybe the most disappointing part for him. But what's your next one here, Tony?
So complete pivot from talking about some of the worst football being played in the league. This feels like the year with the most teams that feel like they could win a Super Bowl. It is so cool. It is the year of parity. It's like this in college football too, which is just a really cool like aligning at the start. Really wish they had a 12-team playoff this year of all years.
That would be fun. Yeah.
It's the year of parity. The Chiefs are rightfully still the Super Bowl favorites because I'm going to take the GOAT quarterback and an elite defense. But there are so many teams like you could. I didn't actually go through. I should have done this. As I'm about to spit off this take, I should have gone through and looked at all the teams I felt like could win the Super Bowl to back this thing up. But it feels like there's like at least 15. Any team that sneaks into the playoffs, I could probably get behind the idea, except for the Vikings, who I think will steal that 7 seed over in the NFC, just because, Josh Dobbs ain't winning the Super Bowl. But anybody else, it feels like it's at least possible. And this time last year, it felt like there were 5 teams. This time the year before, it felt like there were 4 or 5 teams. And to triple that and have it be real, like there are real teams, it's so cool that just we have no idea who's going to win it this year, and anybody who makes the playoffs is live.
Yeah, I do agree with that for the most part. I will say, and maybe this is the pessimist in me, but I don't think the Steelers should be in that category either. I know that the defense can turn it on, but I can't see it personally. But I watch that team every week, so I understand. Like people from the outside would say that they definitely have a chance, and theoretically they do, but I couldn't see them winning a playoff game against another competent team.
Yeah, maybe I do the exercise and it gets down to 10, and but that still feels awesome.
That's a lot for the NFL. So either way, I agree with that.
I am prone to hyperbole, people. Sorry.
Hey, that's right. No, I do agree with that though. In general, like the general premise that there's more teams now at this point in the season and I can remember in a long time that I'm like, I could see this team being able to beat just about anybody, right? Like that's kind of the name of the game, right? It's like, can you beat anybody on any given day? And there's the reason that any given Sunday is such a popular phrase. Like it is really that way. I mean, just look at the Cardinals earlier this year with their 1 win they have. So like it's just sometimes it happens. But yeah, I totally agree. This next one is also about a rookie quarterback for me. CJ Stroud is the most advanced rookie quarterback in the last decade. As far as on field, like
Luck was drafted 2012. Yeah,
exactly. There's a reason I said decade. But no, like as far as on field, like ability to run the offense he's in, the level of play he's running it with, he is the most advanced rookie quarterback we've seen in that time frame. And I think it's not particularly close. I mean, Dak had a great rookie year, but I mean that team was loaded. Let's be honest about it. Like this is
a very different scenario. They had like the top run game in the league. In Houston, they've got like the 31st ranked run game,
which disappoints me. Damian Pierce makes me sad, but that's beside the point. What he's done with this group of receivers. Now, granted, the receivers are playing good within this game. It's not like they're just like not doing anything and he's making every single thing happen. But this scheme with Slowick, the way that he's operating in it, everything just feels free and easy, and it looks way easier than it should in a rookie season. That's the thing that jumps off the page for me is like when you look at just the numbers and you watch the film, like everything just feels too perfect almost at times. Where it's like, how is this guy doing this as a rookie? And I think I go back to the Georgia game, right? And I think my biggest hangup with Stroud as a prospect was not so much whether he was worthy of being drafted in the top 5 like he was. It was how much of a ceiling is there beyond just, he's a great operator in the pocket. He's one of the most accurate quarterbacks I've seen come out in a long time. Like, that's all great. What is his actual ceiling as a playmaker? And if you just look at the Georgia game and you're able to convince yourself, okay, this can be who he is most of the time, then he definitely was in the conversation to be the first overall pick for me, if not definitely the first overall pick. But it's really hard for you to assume that, like, okay, that one game he had in college that truly showcased that, is that who he is all the time? And lo and behold, in this case, yes, that is who CJ Stroud is most of the time. Some of the stuff I've seen him do as a play extender, never would have expected that from him, watching his full college tape. And it wasn't an ability aspect thing, but he just didn't do it. And I understand, like with Ohio State, a lot of the time he wasn't asked to, right? Like you don't have to do that a lot with those Ohio State teams, especially. I mean, he had a top 10 pick at tackle on his team. Like it is another guy who's played really well at tackle for the Browns and DeJuan Jones. Like he's had really good players around him, obviously, his whole career at Ohio State. But separating that was a little bit difficult for me. And now I'm kind of eating that a little bit because I did still have him as, quarterback worthy of being drafted where he was, but I just didn't have him as high as I probably should have, right? Like that's where I'm at with him now.
I'm feeling vindication.
I bet you do. I bet you are. Yeah.
But yeah, no, Stroud is, I had high expectations for him. I liked him more than Young. Yes. But I did not expect this level of play.
How could anybody?
Especially when, like, going into the season, I was like, yeah, they have a really good offensive line. And then all of them got injured. And they haven't been a good offensive line, and he's just been ripping it. He doesn't care. He's got a rookie Tank Dell, 160 pounds, whatever the hell he is. He's just ripping it. Stroud is just so damn good, so fast. It's awesome. Really, really good for football to see all these young guys come in like this.
This past game especially, I don't know if I've ever seen anything like that game from a rookie ever. I don't, because obviously he breaks the record for most yards in the game for a rookie, that luck set. Like, I don't know what you do as a defense against when they're rolling and he's seeing field the way he was seeing in that game. And the sad part is, like, if you go back, I watched JTO, so I shout him out all the time, the quarterback school on YouTube.
A worthy shout out, always.
Yeah, I went back and he has it on the whole game on his. I didn't finish the whole game, but he has the whole game on his Patreon. He goes through every snap that they had on offense. He missed some big time throws. Like there was throws he could have had a 500-yard day easy and probably 6 or 7 touchdowns if he hit the bigger throws he missed earlier in the game. Like that's the sad part is it wasn't even like a perfect game from him technically. He did have some misses, and he still throws for 470 and 5 touchdowns.
Just unshaken.
It is unbelievable. Like I haven't seen anything like it. So obviously CJ, hoping that he can continue to do this rest of this year and into his career. Houston sure as hell needs it after what they've been through at the quarterback position. So certainly good for them. What's your next take if you have one, Tony?
So this is my last one, and it's just, and I guess this plays into both of my points. They're all very connected. Football, a lot of conflating variables. But just that quarterback injuries feel way up this year.
They do. They do.
The last week, how many different backup rookie quarterbacks, undrafted free agent quarterbacks were playing? Like Josh Dobbs is on his 3rd team of the season. Even you have guys, you have Joe Burrow, Jalen Hurts, and Josh Allen all playing hurt. Like how many quarterbacks are going to sustain it? You've got Kirk Cousins and Aaron Rodgers both tearing their Achilles. It is a crazy, absurd year for quarterback injuries. And I really hope that like it doesn't impact the playoffs. Like it already has in the fact that Kirk Cousins and Aaron Rodgers, both of whom that would have their teams in the playoff if they remained healthy, they're out of it now. Rodgers isn't coming back. Stop buying into his Dolphin sex.
If he plays a snap this year again, I will laugh so hard because like, dude, there's no chance.
It's just a waste of time. Like, just run it back next year. You're gonna be better.
It's fine. Don't worry about it.
But Yeah, so it's crazy how many injuries there have been. I'm really hoping that we've seen them all. Like it is,
Right.
it's contributing to the offensive struggles. It's contributing to the parity. It's contributing to everything. But I want to see the best players out there, man.
Right, and like there's some guys that we kind of had concerns about going into the year that luckily, and I'm gonna knock on wood here, that haven't got injured. Like Tua is a big one, right? Like
Yeah.
his work in the offseason has really improved his health so far, and like you hope that
I did
continues.
say on
But
this show that was more
I know
important than the
anything,
Jets
and
trading
so
for Aaron Rodgers.
and you were right for the wrong reasons, but still
For
right.
terribly wrong reasons. Terrible process, great results.
Exactly, which will always take the result if you can get it, so that's fine. But no, like he's a guy like obviously you hope he can continue to do that because they've been insane most of the time, and like it's a concern because again, like I do think especially for a team like the Vikings who are starting to get hot, like losing Cousins, Dobbs obviously has the miraculous game, but like is he going to be able to keep that level of play up? Maybe, but if so, like is it going to mean anything in the playoffs if they get there? Like it's just there's a lot of concerns there, and you didn't even mention Matthew Stafford too. Like, of course,
Oh shit, yeah, I totally forgot about that.
like he gets banged up, and that's unfortunate because the Rams were very competitive, if not maybe still struggling a little bit. Like, it is unfortunate, but I do want to talk. There's two other things I want to mention. I'll do it more briefly just because I want to get into the games here. For me so far, and like this is obviously you talked about parity, and I definitely agree with it. And I think that this take is kind of more of just like my own personal preference as far as teams go this year. But for my money right now, on their best day, the Ravens and Eagles are the two best teams in the NFL.
100%.
And
Yes.
that's where I'm at right now, right? And I think again, like I think a lot of people probably feel the same way. What we've seen the Ravens do in the last couple of weeks is ridiculous, like unbelievable,
Absurd.
scary as shit. Don't like it one bit as a Steelers fan, but also have to respect it. And then the Eagles are the Eagles, right? Like they aren't even looking the same as they were last year. And they're still 8-1 or whatever, 7-1, 8-1, whatever it is. Like they still get it done. And there's concerns on that team, but when they are playing at their best, I mean, the Cowboys gave them everything they could give them, and they couldn't
Yeah.
quite get it done. Like it's just Dak played about as good as you possibly could play. CeeDee Lamb was unbelievable, and they just couldn't get it done. And they were getting penalties even to try to kind of help them get down the field in that last drive. Like it still just couldn't get it done. Like this team just wins. And the Ravens are getting to that point too, where like if their weapons are healthy and not effing up all the time, Lamar's playing at a level that we've never seen him play. I know he's had an MVP. We have never seen this version of Lamar Jackson. I'm sorry. Like this is a different level of player as a passer, especially. And we're finally getting to see that with an offense that isn't necessarily even that innovative or anything like that. It's just an actual NFL passing game, right? Like we haven't seen him play with one of those. And that has been very scary to see. Let me put it that way. I've been kind of hoping like Greg Roman sticks around just long enough for the Steelers to get back to where they can compete with this team. And they missed the boat by a little bit, I feel like, especially this year. So other than that, though, the one I wanted to mention too, and this is more just for fun, but I believe personally that Arthur Smith hates the following people: Kyle Pitts, Bijan Robinson, himself, and every fantasy football player that has ever existed or will ever exist. This guy hates fantasy football to the point where this is a joke. I want to just preface this, but I feel like he's effing with us with this thing, like with Pitts and Bijan. He's like, well, Tyler Algier is one of the best goal line backs in the league, and I'm like, he's averaging like 2.3 yards per carry in like the short yardage situations, and Bijan is averaging like 5.7, and not that many different, like not a huge difference in attempts. What are you looking at? Like, what is your page of stats you're looking at every week going like, okay, this is where we're good and where we're bad. And then you're doing this. Like, what is going on with this team? Like, I want to like the Falcons so much because they're really talented and they have all these talented players. And they still win. Like they're 4-4, right? I think it is now. I think they've only played 8 games. Yeah, 4-4,
something like that.
But it just feels like they could put it all together if the right usage of players were in effect, and it just isn't happening. And I just want to know, like, what is the actual reason for some of the decisions, especially in the red zone? Like, there's just been some weird red zone calls where like they're trying to get too cute with it. Like I know there's like a Jonnu Smith pass attempt or something, or like just weird stuff going on. Like, what do you make of that, Tony? So I know you like the Falcons, or did like the Falcons going into the year. So
yeah, so I honestly probably hate them more than most because I staked some of my reputation on them. I thought they were really good.
They're not bad, but it feels like there's missing like stuff is missing, right?
Oh, plenty is missing, and it all comes back to Arthur Smith.
Yeah.
He this is he is the son of FedEx founder and owner, full on billionaire. He's never had to work for anything in his life. He
Okay.
got
Yeah.
he got his first ever coaching job because his dad owned the was I think his dad was sponsored FedEx Field, and so he got an entry level assistant job with the Washington at that time Redskins probably.
Yes.
But
Yeah. So,
and then his dad is best friends with the owner of the Titans, and he gets a job over there. And like, yeah, I mean, he has good scheme. Like, his X's and O's are good, but I don't think this man has ever developed an understanding of human beings in society, because he's just been living above for so long, and he doesn't know how to talk to people, he doesn't know how to treat people, he doesn't know how to personnel manage, because he is just he's not exactly a human being in the context most of us are human beings. He's been living on cloud nine the entire time. So he might see a single practice rep that's bad and punish that guy forever because of it. I think he's just so miscalibrated to human beings that he does not understand how to manage his personnel. And yeah, that's probably like way too much psychoanalyzing a situation where a guy is just in over his head. But I truly think this guy just doesn't know people. And you see it in the way he talks to the media. He does not need to have a bad relationship with the media. He could just answer their questions, and he could be like, I really like what Tyler gives us in practice on the goal line scenarios. Like, I probably should, we're going to try Bijan in some of those scenarios this week, and we'll see how things go. Like, you can give just a coach speak answer, but
yeah.
you shouldn't be antagonistic. And when you are losing and antagonistic, you get fired a lot faster than if you are losing and you are kind. And so he is just, I hate Arthur Smith with a passion, because this man is just living everybody's dream and fumbling it terribly and being an asshole while doing it. So count me out on Arthur Smith.
It sucks, man, because like he hasn't been bad enough yet where like there's a guarantee he's gone. So there's a pretty good chance, unless they really bottom out the rest of the year, that he's going to be back next year to try to make this thing happen. And I really just, my whole thing, right, is if I'm the GM of the team, right, and I draft Bijan Robinson for you, the only reason I draft a running back, as good as Bijan is, in the top 8 of a draft, is because my coach wants to use him with abandon. I'm talking build the offense around him, make him the focal point of everything you do, and play off of that. It should open up the passing game more, a whole 9 yards, like all the cliches, whatever. And then you don't do it. What is the point of this? Like, what was the point of drafting Bijan in the top 8 if right away, as a running back especially, you have to hit the ground running and start using that guy, because in 4 or 5 years, you don't know what they're going to be like. You just don't know in the NFL especially. And they're wasting a potentially unbelievable rookie season from him because they don't want to use him as much as he can handle. And I just don't – that's the one that really gets me, because the Kyle Pitts thing goes back to last year. I don't know what the deal is with that. I don't care at this point. I just kind of hope he ends up on a good team in like 2 years. That's where I'm at with Kyle Pitts. But the rest of the stuff, I simply don't understand. Like, it just, none of it makes sense to me. So I think that's why I get frustrated so much, and probably why you also, like I said, you talked him up, and again, you've been more correct about that than I was correct about the Panthers, admittedly.
Fair.
But for different reasons, right? Like they haven't done what you wanted to do, and the Panthers did everything I didn't want them to do. So it's kind of like, all right, well, whatever. But yeah, that's our kind of takeaways so far this year. Let's get into the games this week now. Should be able to get through them a little bit quickly. Not super, not a ton of games this week. I think there's like how many? It's like 8 teams on bye or something like that, or however many teams it is.
Yeah, because we had the bye-pocalypse, and then the week where everybody played, and then another bye, and then I think the last week was a lighter bye. I don't know.
I know that I think there's like 12 games. Was it?
There's less games than usual, for sure. I'm seeing 13.
13. I think it's 13. Yeah, 12 or 13. Anyway, point is, we have a little bit of a lighter slate, so we'll try to get through these games here. Let's start with the games that maybe we don't need to watch unless you're a fan of the teams. Just kind of what I'll say this category really is. Colts at Patriots. The Colts aren't terrible, Tony, but do I want to watch them play at this point without Anthony Richardson in the last few weeks now? Not particularly. And then the Patriots, I don't know if anyone wants to watch them play. Even Patriots fans, actually, maybe especially Patriots fans, because they are not used to this, right? They're not used to this situation. So, what do you think about this game?
Yeah, I wish I didn't have to think about this game.
Right? Exactly.
Wish
That's
it
kind
weren't
of
an island game. Like, right? You're
yeah,
giving
right.
at least, you
Yeah,
know what? I'll say this: if the 9:30 a.m. kickoff, like, it's cool if I'm not doing
yes,
anything, but I
right.
don't want to feel like I have to be there to watch it. So last week was
That's
tough
yeah.
because it was like I need to watch this
You have
game.
to watch that
This
game.
is appointment television. I have to see it. This week, it feels like I can go about my morning normally, and if I catch the game, I catch it. If I don't, that's okay.
That's true. Yeah,
The Patriots have been playing tougher lately.
they have. Yeah.
Ramondre Stevenson appears to have his explosion back, which could, like, in offense, desperate for that. That would
Something,
help.
anything. Yeah.
Um, the defense, I don't
Yeah.
know. That they're feeling better than they have at their lows, but they still don't feel like a good football team. And if they hadn't beat the Bills that one week, I think we'd be talking about one of the worst teams in the league. So.
Yeah.
As much as I don't think the Colts are any good, I think they're better, and I think they have a coach who is willing to do more things with the intent of winning, where Bill Belichick a lot of the times does things with the intent of keeping the game close so they can win in the end. So just give me Shane Steichen out coaching Bill Belichick in Germany. I'll take Colts 24-18.
Yeah, that feels about right. I think that you're right about where these teams are at, and I think the Patriots especially, like, they just don't have a lot going for them right now, right? And between injuries on defense, their offensive line has been dreadful most of the time this year. Mac Jones is a dumpster fire for the most part. Like, he's looked more competent recently for sure in terms of, like, not just being a turnover machine and throwing the ball just random places on the field seemingly, but he's still just he doesn't have the talent level to elevate an offense this bad, and he never has. So I guess it's not that surprising, but it's still disappointing to be this bad, right? So I do agree the Colts are the better team, and I think they're going to be the better coach team in this situation. As much as that's crazy to say about Bill Belichick, it's getting less and less crazy, if being honest about it.
Yeah.
I do think I'll say 21-14. I think it's going to be kind of a snooze fest for the most part. But hey, folks in Germany get to see what bad football looks like, so they can really know if they're fans or not.
Either that, or they're going to think Jonathan Taylor is the best player in the world. Like,
This
just
is
imagine
true.
like the Jonathan Taylor
Those would be
250
great.
yard game.
I would love that. I'd have a reason to watch then, right?
Yeah, right.
Especially for a Wisconsin boy, right? So let's move to the Titans and Buccaneers. Now, the Bucs are. I feel so bad for Baker Mayfield after last week because you put up 37 points in a game
On a good defense.
on a defense that's been
On a
pretty good
defense
this
that
year.
isn't terrible.
Right,
Good was
they
way
are
too
a
much.
very competent defense with D'Amico Ryans at the helm of it, despite the lack of talent for the most part outside of a couple newer players. And you lose. And now you're behind the eight ball in a division that was totally winnable in a season where we all expected the Bucs to be like 2-6 at this point, 1-7. They aren't. But it's really hard to see a path forward for them to really get back into the divisional race, especially if the Saints do well this week because they're sitting at 5-4. The Falcons are still hanging around because, of course, they are. Despite Arthur Smith's best efforts not to, as we talked about a little bit ago, and they welcome a Titans team that is frisky right now still, right? Like with Will Levis in there at quarterback, they have a guy who can make some big throws. DeAndre Hopkins was rejuvenated the week before. Now the Steelers kind of shut them down a little bit, but still it had some good plays in that game. I don't really know which way I want to go with this game, but I definitely want to hear what you think about it.
So this is one that, in the grand scheme of things, is uninteresting, right? It's not going to impact anything. Like, I understand what bucket it's in, but it's probably going to be exciting.
I think so too.
Which is going to be fun because we know the type of games the Buccaneers can get themselves into, and Will Levis is just a gunslinger, and I love it. They're not asking him to do much, but it's a lot of just screens and long balls, and it's really, really fun. And I don't know if it translates to like winning football yet, but it's entertaining. And so we also know that the Buccaneers defense can get passed all over. They are just hemorrhaging
their
yards.
Corners
like
are
crazy.
just not playing well this year at all.
It's really tough. And so I think they're going to be able to heat Levis up quite a bit. Like, Todd Bowles against a rookie second-round quarterback is an advantageous position for a defense to be in. But he likes to just throw it up into Hopkins in double coverage, and that's a winning play. Like, that, as much as that's not good process, it's a winning play. So I think that it's going to be interesting because it's going to have like fireworks. It's not going to matter in the grand scheme of the NFL, really, unless Levis just continues looking like like a real quarterback. In which case, a lot of teams will be they'll just be upset with themselves for how the first round played out last year. So I do think. I think I'm buying into Levis a little bit because I was on Levis a little bit at the start too, and so I just think he can get enough explosives and win a high-scoring game. So give me 31-28 Titans. I think it's going to be fun and just, yeah, it's going to be fun.
I feel very similarly about the direction of the game. I feel like there's going to be some explosives in this game. The Titans can give up a lot of points, and they can score possibly a lot of points with their strategy on offense right now. I do wonder for Levis. I think you're right to say that like he's outperformed what I would have expected from him through 2 games as a rookie, especially because I just didn't think we'd see him till late. Obviously, Tannehill goes down and also was dreadful before he goes down, like just
Makes
awful,
it easier.
horrendous. Yeah, like just not good. Um, so like having him in the lineup makes things more interesting for that team. But I feel like against the Buccaneers, you kind of alluded to with Todd Bowles and his scheme and going up against a quarterback. I think the Buccaneers will do just enough to limit the offense for their own offense to outscore them. I'm going to say 28-24 Bucks, but I wouldn't be surprised if Levis drops like 4 touchdowns on this team because their secondary is not good. Holy crap. I mean, I know Stroud had a phenomenal day, but that secondary was certainly giving him some opportunities.
Yeah, they didn't make it harder on him.
Yeah, they definitely did make it harder for sure. So he just had to hit his throws, and he did. So that's just, can Levis do the same? We'll see. This next game I wanted to put in interesting, but it's just that the Cardinals are so far out of things, and like the Falcons just bother me so much that I didn't do it. But Falcons at Cardinals, the Kyler Murray return game. This is our opportunity to see what this team can do and what they can look like on offense with a quarterback that, as much as Josh Dobbs impressed in the Vikings debut and also the first couple games of the Cardinals season, isn't quite the same level of quarterback as Kyler Murray, right? We get to see what he can look like. You know, a guy that has had MVP level starts to seasons and had some really good seasons and already in his career gets to come back with a team that feels just more competitive, weirdly enough, than the one he was on last year. Like they feel like they play harder to me, and I think the scheme is in a better spot. So what do you think about his return, and what do you expect to see from them?
Yeah, so I'm really excited that he's returning. In the offseason, I was all aboard the he's never playing for them again train. He's going to get traded. They're all in on the tank. The way that they've played this season and just the way things have played out, I've fully come off that. I now believe that if they got the first overall pick, they'd keep Kyler and trade the pick and just continue to stack assets. So complete 180 there. But I don't think he's going to look great right away, right? Like this is this is a guy who relies on his legs. He's a smaller guy, so he likes to move out of the pocket, shift his passing lanes, everything. And he's probably going to be hobbled a little bit, right? Like he's not going to be 100%.
I imagine
he's not going to be.
Yeah.
He's not going to be running around like, how do people describe it? Like a toddler who steals a phone, right?
There's no one more fun to watch run around on the football field than Kyler Murray. I'm sorry, he's so funny to watch. But yeah,
yes, it's so I don't think he's going to be that yet, but I also saw Josh Dobbs carve this defense up last week, and I think he can probably do enough to do that. So should be like encouraging for Cardinals fans. The Falcons, on the other hand, like we said earlier, I feel like it's going to keep spiraling. I do think we're going to see this team continue to spiral now. Another team I've done a complete 180 on. So give me the Cardinals and the little, like, they get the jolt from Kyler coming back. Even if he's not the reason they win, I think that they will at least be able to be in the game. So give me the Cardinals 23-20 over the Falcons in this one. And Cardinals have a bright future now, which I wasn't 100% on that going into this.
Yeah, I agree that I think the thing that Murray's going to do for this team down the stretch is, one, might get them out of the first overall pick, which, again, I don't know if they really cared that much if he's playing well enough to do that anyway. Because
I don't think they care.
Right, and that's the thing is it feels like, and even if they do end up with the first pick still, right, and you talked about it, I think going into the season, there was expectations put upon Caleb Williams that he was going to be a can't-miss best prospect we've seen in a very long time at the quarterback position. And unfortunately, he really hasn't built upon anything he's done in college up to this point. He's still very much the same type of player that he was his first 2 years or so of playing. And while he's not a guarantee, obviously the talent's there. He's going to be the first over pick almost assuredly, unless a team gets it that has Drake May higher than him or something like that. But I don't think it's at a point now where you can really argue that you're going to have a good chance of getting a better quarterback than Kyler Murray by taking one of those guys. And because of that, I do think that's one of the main reasons that they not only wanted Kyler to play, but Kyler wants to get back on the field because he does think he can be the quarterback for this team moving forward like he was supposed to be. And I want to see them get back to some of the stuff that not necessarily the stuff, but I want to see him be able to be that mobile quarterback, hopefully right away, because I'm hoping they're not putting him out there without him feeling comfortable to do that stuff. Now, he's not going to do it as much, I think, early on because of the fact he's coming back from injury and he doesn't want to have to, worry about getting hurt. But his ability with his legs is going to be what elevates this offense, I think, the rest of the way, like being able to create plays out of structure, to run the offense when he has the opportunity to. And the offensive line is still certainly a work in progress. So he's going to probably have to use those legs a lot. But I do think they'll be able to beat the Falcons, like you said. I just don't think the Falcons are in a place right now where I can pick them confidently against really almost anybody. Not because they're bad, but because I just don't trust Arthur Smith to use his players correctly. Like
I expect them to be in their own way at all times.
Right, exactly. And that's just a tough spot to be in as a team. So I'm going to say 24-20, very similar score to you, Tony, but that's what I had coming into this game. I think that they'll win, kind of get that jolt, and we'll see where it takes them the rest of the way. Giants-Cowboys Part 2. Oh, man. Tommy DeVito against Dak Prescott, the premier quarterback matchup of the week, right? What do you say about this game, right? Like, the Giants are awful. They have a undrafted rookie quarterback, or rookie or second. I don't even remember if he's a rookie this year. I couldn't tell you.
I don't know.
I think he might be actually. I think it might
be.
No
Tommy DeVito knowledge up here.
Yeah, I mean, I remember him at Syracuse being pretty mid, which is tough when you're at Syracuse in mid and now you're starting games in the NFL. But I do know that it's going to be his first start, and it's probably not going to go so great. Let's just be honest about it. Cowboys, despite some of their issues, are still a very good football team. They just played the Eagles down to the wire, and they're at home against this team, who again they already beat 40-0 on the road to start the year, which is kind of what sparked all the issues with the Giants as far as like the alarm bells of, oh no, are they really bad? Turns out the answer to that is yes, very much. They're terrible. So anything you want to really talk about this game?
It's really fun. It's really fun betting a 17-point underdog.
Yeah.
I'm not going to partake. That's all I've got on this one. Okay. It's just like, usually you see a number that big and you get excited and you want to do it.
Hammer that. Right?
This is not the game to do it.
No,
don't do it. Don't do it.
No,
Cowboys get 40-0. Run it back. Why not?
Like the sad part is I don't know if it's going to be a worse score though than the first game, which is sad because I just don't know if the Cowboys will feel the need to do that. And I don't think
they'll probably be more comfortable sitting on it now that we're deeper into the season.
Right. Like, I don't know if they're like it still might be a 30-point win or whatever, but I don't know if they can top the 40-0 they put on them the first week of the season. So like, yeah, I mean, what is the point? What's the worst point differential for a divisional team against their opponent in a single season? I wonder, because this is probably going to be it. Depending on if there's some other weird season I'm not thinking of, like. If they drop 35
points. I struggled with that because like I was aware of the AFC East landscape while the Patriots were the Patriots.
Right.
And I feel like the Bills are probably on the losing end of whatever that record is.
Yeah, it's probably close. But I'm getting like let's say they score 35 points, the Giants score 3. That's a 72-point differential in 2 games against a division opponent. Like that feels like there can't be worse, right? Like I don't even know if they have that as a stat somewhere. But yeah, that's totally on the table. I'll say that much. But you're looking for it right now.
I'm googling things. I don't know how to search for this exactly, so I don't feel great that I'm gonna get every single one. But we can carry on. We don't need to. Right. This is
gotcha. That feels like something that could be possible though. Anyway, Jets at Raiders. The Jets simply they're not so good right now, right? Like Zach Wilson. I struggle with it because like I think he's a better player right now than he was the first 2 years of his career, but better player means he's a backup quarterback. So like, what does that mean for you? You know, what I mean?
Yeah, like I agree that he's a better player now. I don't even know if he's backup quarterback quality. Um,
Yeah, it's again that's the
Saying this
question: is he even backup?
as a fan of a team that he beat,
Yeah,
I,
well, yeah,
twice in the last calendar year, but not calendar year, but just
yeah, I know. Yeah,
you know what I'm saying. But
yeah,
I think that I feel really bad for Robert Saleh because none of this is his fault, and he's the
no.
one getting raked over the coals for it, and it should be Joe Douglas and the owner catching all this flack. He pleaded the fifth on just talking
Which
about
is
Zach Wilson's
so
performance.
funny that he did that.
I
It's so
respect the
funny.
shit out of
Like
that move. That was the
I
most
agree,
like
but
I
it's
have to be up here and trying to be supportive, but I just simply can't anymore because this isn't my call. Like I respect the hell out of that because he has been pushed
right.
into such a tough spot, and he's coaching his ass off right now, and he just is stuck with this quarterback because his GM and owner can't admit defeat. Like, ugh.
I have to wonder, and like we'll talk about the Raiders here in a second, but I have to wonder like what does this team look like with freaking even Andy Dalton at quarterback? Like, let's be honest about it. Like,
They're firmly in the playoff hunt,
right?
right? Like we're talking
That's what I'm
about them
saying.
as like a team that you're like, oh yeah, these are going to keep one of those elite quarterbacks out of the postseason. Like they'd be one of those teams. They'd be like the Browns right now, right?
Right, exactly. It's like
Not that the Browns have anything good at quarterback either, but
no, but whatever. Like you get the point. Like it just like you said, the backup thing is like I think he's I guess a backup at this point, like play wise, but he's not like a good backup. Like he's not Jacoby Brissett. He's not Andy
oh
Dalton.
god,
I
no,
just talked
no.
about like
Jacoby
it's
Brissett should be starting
well,
on teams. He's a starter.
that's a whole other conversation. But whatever. Yeah, like the Commanders should have traded him. By the way, I don't see someone had to call right. Like someone was on the phone. Like, hey, listen, uh, you obviously like Sam Howell. He's going to be the starter. Jacoby's not going to play unless he gets hurt. What do you want for Jacoby? Like someone had to call, right? But whatever. The Raiders, I want to talk about a little bit too because they're firmly in the post McDaniel's era, which is fantastic for them, in my opinion. But that's kind of beside the point. Sitting at 4-5 and being a very weird roster right now overall. I don't really know what to make of them the rest of the year because Aiden O'Connell is going to be the starter, which I think is probably the best thing for them to do at this point because like Jimmy was just not getting it done at all, and like there's no point
Yeah,
in
you got to
playing a
find out what
guy.
he is like.
Right, like there's no point in playing Jimmy Garoppolo if he's not like also winning. Like that's the thing with Jimmy. Like if he's winning, sure, you can play him. As soon as you're not winning, we don't. What are we getting out of this guy? Like what is happening anyway? Also, Devontae Adams, I just have to feel really bad for because this is not what he wanted when he came to this team. He wanted to play with his best friend quarterback. He was not good enough to stay on the team, and then everything has just gone to shit since.
I lay 100% of that blame on Devontae Adams.
No,
Honestly,
he
though.
made a bad decision, but like it's like everything he wanted or expected just disappeared in a year. Like literally everything that he thought was happening stopped existing in a year. It's like crazy that everything changed in a year.
Yeah. He bad vision from him.
Should have played for the Packers this past year. Like that's just what should have happened. He should have still been a
Or
backup.
I'm sure there were other teams that
Yeah,
like he didn't have to go to play with Derek Carr, a lame duck quarterback.
that was a whole other. Yeah,
But so despite us, talking about Zach Wilson and everything, I do firmly believe that the Jets are about to shit pump the Raiders on Sunday night. I like it's the age old, the interim head coach bump gets you a win, and then the bottom falls out real fast. Now the vibes are so immaculate that I'm nervous because like they're not playing a good team, they're just playing a good defense, and like their vibes again immaculate. I just can't imagine that Aiden O'Connell is going to beat a Robert Saleh defense with all these guys.
that's kind of where I'm
And
at too. Yeah.
like the Raiders, despite the vibes right now, are still living in a dysfunctional roster. And so yeah, the Jets I think are, I guess they're not really capable of shit pumping a team because that would require offense. But maybe Breece Hall gets like 5 different 50-yard touchdown runs. That's possible.
That'd be fun.
And my fantasy teams would love it. But yeah,
Me
so
too.
I
I was
give me
gonna
the
have it,
Jets. A score is tough with teams like this. I think they're going to cross 20. I think they're going to do it. Give me 26-10.
It's fun. I'm gonna do 20-6.
All right.
So yeah, like I feel like you said, the Raiders they had that bump. Antonio Pierce is really fired up. Said some stuff that did sound kind of sus in his in his post conference or press conference. Saw that. about touching players. We know what you mean, Antonio. That was funny.
Wait, what? I missed
He
this.
said he likes to touch players, but like he meant it as like like you know what
The classic School
right.
of Rock mix up. Yeah.
Exactly. It's like, okay, let's stop for a second. Hold on. No, but I'm happy
I've
for
touched
him.
your players, and I like to think that they've really touched me
Touched
too.
me too. Exactly. Yeah, exactly that type of vibe. So, no, but I do think the Raiders, they made the right decision, but I don't think it's going to lead to much success in the future this year or this game. I do think the Jets are just good enough. We'll say that. Are they good? I don't know. Good enough, maybe. Let's move into the interesting bucket here. Broncos Bills. Tony, I'm going to just let you go ahead and talk about your Bills. We talked about it in pre-show. You go ahead and just kind of give me the spiel on what's going on with the Bills.
Yeah, so like I understand the panic that's setting in with Bills fans, but all of the NFL analysts who are telling you not to overreact are right this time around, guys. Like watching this stuff, it's not good, right? It sucks to say like, yeah, no, the offense is actually playing pretty well, but then you see the product of like offensive points not being scored, and you see the losing happen, and like, sorry guys, we've been living on the right side of variance for a few years, and like teams can have unlucky stretches, and so yeah, each turnover feels more important because you don't have the defense to back it up. We've gone from top 5 in defensive success rate in EPA down to bottom 5. Field position battle, we're losing. The offense is still churning. It's just untimely turnovers and penalties, and that's just bad luck, and that hopefully turns itself around, but you never know. But like overall, I don't think they have to change anything drastic. I would understand us firing Ken Dorsey. I still am not at the point where I'm personally advocating for it, but I understand it more and more. Just not because there's anything wrong with his offense, but because when you have an elite quarterback, the level of offense they're outputting is like, you'd hope that somebody's in there elevating it. Like a lot of different people could come in and let things be, and you'll get pretty much the same output. Like I could understand wanting an elevator there. And then I also understand all the players asking for tempo and him not really going for tempo. Like I personally wouldn't do it. I understand it. But at the end of the day, there's not really a change that's going to help. It's just hoping that luck gets back on our side. And with all the defensive injuries, probably not the year. Speaking of defensive injuries specific to this game, so Micah Hyde and Christian Benford aren't going to play. Terrell Bernard is still in concussion protocol. He's not going to play most likely. We're looking at probably 3 of the original starters on this defense playing. And now it's not a scary offense to be playing with the Broncos, but like they're probably going to get some explosives. Just you're down to 3 starters and a lot of undrafted guys filling those gaps. So I expect fireworks on Monday night because the Bills' offense is going to come out swinging. Like you're going to see them try to hang 70, right? Like I think we're going to see that type of offensive performance. And then you just wonder how much the defense holds up. Like, is it going to become a shootout? I trust Josh Allen in a shootout against Russell Wilson. Right. If mistakes start to pile up, then this game could go a different direction pretty fast. But overall, I just think that it's going to be a track meet, and we just have the offense to sustain longer. So give me like Bills. I think they're going to get into the 30s at least. So yeah, give me 35-24. I think feels about right.
Yeah, I agree with you that, and we talked about a pre-show that like a lot of the issues offensively are not like, it's not like they're bad. It's that they haven't been able to combine enough big touchdown drives with field goals and some drives that are more drag it out. Like you got to get in the range to do some stuff. Like there's been this feast or famine situation with them, and it is like there's a luck element to it. They're not getting the explosives that they were earlier in the year, and I do worry, like not so much about like how good of a team they are or aren't, but if they, for example, if they do lose this game and they go to 5-5, the rest of the year, like you're going to start to worry, like, is the defense so beat up that the offense just can't consistently overcome?
Oh yeah, no, I wouldn't expect the Bills to make the playoffs if they do lose on Monday night, just because you're about to enter the gauntlet.
Exactly. That's the thing that you worry about, because like defensively, it's just it's so hard if you have 3 starters from your like it's really hard to do that. I don't care how deep your team is. Like there's just not, teams aren't built to handle that level of attrition at defense. Like it's just not possible. Or like it makes me think of the Ravens defense the past couple of years where like literally everybody was hurt by like week 4, and you're like, all right, Like,
Yeah,
what do we,
it's just like
like, what are
the
you gonna
map
do?
changes.
Right, and it's so I do worry a little bit about that, but I do think they are just better than the Broncos, even with their current situation. Like I just think they're better, so I do agree they're going to win. I'm going to say 31-27. I think the Broncos could have a good offensive game. Like they're
That
not
I
bad on
expect
offense.
them to have good
Yeah,
offensive output.
yeah, they're not. The Broncos make me so mad because like they're not bad enough overall for me to be like I can just write them off every week. But like they're just not. They're missing stuff, man. It's frustrating. Sean Payton has a lot of work to do. Let me put it that way because he's going to be the one doing the work. So he better get it right after this year. Let me put it that way. Let's do the Lions Chargers. The Chargers kind of salvaged their season a little bit just with the Jets win this past week, and I just don't know what to make of them still. I don't trust their head coach. I don't trust the defense. I don't trust the offense consistently right now, especially with Mike Williams still out for the rest of the year. Like it's pretty much just the
And Josh Palmer on IR now.
yeah, like what do you do? I feel like Justin Herbert hasn't played as well as I would have liked him to in a vacuum this year, but he's still been very good. And like I just don't know what to make of this team. But let's talk about the Lions too a little bit because outside of the Ravens game, this is still a really, really good team. Obviously, they're 6-2. They're one of the best teams in the NFC. And this is a game where I think they're going on the road to LA. I believe, yeah, Lions at Chargers. This would be a really big win for them to kind of cement that like they are just a cut above the middle class of the NFL firmly after a really good start to the year. So what do you think?
Yeah, so I agree that those are the stakes of this game. Um, I think the Lions are significantly better than the
They are.
Chargers,
I do think
and
so.
I
Yeah.
so I'll give a score first. I'm thinking 42-21. I think they double them up. I
Nice. Nice.
What Ben Johnson should be able to do to this defense, with all of the players on this defense that they like. Brand Staley is like trying to cover up like multiple holes schematically, and Ben Johnson's going to pick at those, right? Like he's going to be able to hit them. He's going to be able to hit them hard. They're going to be able to work the run or the pass. They've got all options on the table. This is the healthiest their offense has been. You've got David Montgomery back. You've got your full slate of weapons. Jared Goff in a dome, back in LA. No, I know it's not the team, but it's the stadium. I think the Lions are going to lay some pain on the Chargers. Yeah, so get 42-21. Lions all the way back. The Ravens are just a juggernaut right now, and you if you get blown out by a juggernaut, that's just that happens. But the Lions are for real.
Yeah. I think the thing with Jared Goff at this point, and I wanted to touch on this because of the Ravens game, he is the fully formed version of the guy that led the Rams to the Super Bowl, where he is firing on all cylinders. So unless you can pressure him and force him to make mistakes or not be able to have answers, they're going to roll you on offense a lot of the time. Like that's just where this offense is with Ben Johnson. And I think the Chargers, their pass rush came alive against the Jets, but it's the Jets.
Yeah.
I don't know if their pass rush is good enough right now, even with it playing better, to affect the Lions enough on offense to get them out of what they want to do. Because they have all the answers. The only answer to them is getting onto Jared Goff and not allowing him to make the throws that are there in the offense because he's not going to extend. He's not going to make plays. Like that's just not the quarterback he is. So the book on Jared Goff hasn't really changed in my opinion. It's just the book. It's much harder to break that mold, right? It's much harder to get him off his spot now with this offense operating at the level it's at. And in a week where the Chargers need this win, I really think this is one of those games. Like they needed the Jets win, they need this one too at home. I just don't think so. I don't think they match up well enough. I think the Lions are just much better than them. And unless the pass rush does get home multiple times and affects throws and causes turnovers, even if Justin Herbert plays a really good game in this situation, I don't think it's enough. So I will say I agree. I'm going to say 35-21. I do think it's going to be a 2-score win for the Lions, and this might be kind of especially if it is a true like your score like 42-21. You have to wonder how long can Staley have this happen before he's gone, like. Because is it worth? Yeah, right. It's like, is it worth? Like, I already don't think.
If my score prediction is right, I think he's fired Monday.
Right. Like, I just don't see the value in keeping him through the rest of the year if they lose a game like that. Because not just lose it, but lose it that badly. Like we know the book is out on him. I think I said it earlier in the season. I think the book is clearly just it's red. Like we know what it is. So we'll see.
Yeah, I actually see them oddly similarly to. Let me check our notes and see if this is actually the next game we're talking about. Not the next game we're talking about, but
Okay.
I see them very similarly to the Commanders in terms of head coach being a lame duck. Where like one terrible loss will get either of these guys fired this season, and I think the owners are probably like hoping
Waiting
for that,
for it.
just
Yeah, they're
because
waiting for it.
they both have big name offensive coordinators waiting in the wings that they want to evaluate. Like,
Yes.
if you get blown out by the Lions, wouldn't you rather find out if Kellen Moore has it as a head coach than
Can handle that
than just fumble
responsibility.
around with Brandon Staley for the rest of the season? And then same
I
thing with
would.
like Eric Bieniemy and Ron Rivera over in Washington, and we'll get to them later. But like, I think either one of those teams is on the brink of one big blowout, really just putting the nail in the coffin so they can move on and evaluate the next guy.
Yeah, and I think both of those teams, like, so we'll talk about the Commanders here in a little bit, but they both should be doing this. Like, I think they already should have done it, in my own personal opinion. I know they haven't, and they're why they haven't, but I do think it would have made a lot of sense. But let's move to the Saints and Vikings. Josh Dobbs gets his second opportunity with his team, and he actually probably knows the players on his offense this time. So that whatever that's worth.
He's met them now.
Yeah, he knows their names probably. He knows probably most of the playbook because he's rocket scientist. Saints going to the Vikings. I feel like this game, despite the situation of the Vikings, especially after what we saw from Dobbs last week, where he was making full field reads in that game, which is mind boggling to me. I really don't understand how he was even remotely able to do that. Like, I understand, like, this is a guy that I know.
Aerospace engineer, man.
Right. Again, like, he was like, he is the teach tape on, like, do you need a quarterback to come in and play a game for you tomorrow? It might be Josh Dobbs. Like, that might be the answer to that question just from what we saw this past week. But I feel like this game is a toss-up in a lot of ways. And, like, even with it being the Dobbs situation, like, even with him only being with the team for a week and a half now, it already worked once. Granted, the Falcons are not, whatever. But the Saints just don't – I don't know if they're talented enough to make this a guarantee that they can't go in and get a win that would really help solidify their chance to win the NFC South. But what do you think about this game?
I really struggle with this because, like, obviously if the quarterback situation, even if Josh Dobbs had been there another week, I think I'd feel like much more confident in the Vikings than the Saints. The newness of it all makes it a little bit tough to predict.
It's a bit of a crapshoot, yeah.
It's a bit of a crapshoot, yeah. My thought is just they're similar defenses, Atlanta and New Orleans. New Orleans does it much better, but they're similar. And Dobbs, with no knowledge, was able to come in and carve that shit up. Kevin O'Connell has it. He has it. I liked him last year. Week 2, I was saying he was a Coach of the Year candidate last year. None of that came to fruition, but I feel good that I was early on him. I like him a lot. I think they're going to be able to do enough to cover the +3. I'm really worried about predicting a win. But what Brian Flores and his defense is going to be able to do to Derek Carr, I think, is why I feel like I can pick the Vikings. So I think it's going to be more of a defensive battle. Give me the Vikings 20-14.
20-14. All right. I'm going to say 24-17 Vikings. And I really trust Josh Dobbs with another week of preparation, which is a week more than he had the first game, to be able to get things done offensively. He won't be back this week as far as I know, but Justin Jefferson is looking to return here in the next couple weeks. So that'll be really nice for them. I feel like this Vikings team is really weird to me because I feel like you mentioned it earlier. You think that they could end up being the 7th seed. I agree with that. It's crazy to me that they might do that, how the season started, and the fact that Kirk Cousins won't be the quarterback of the team if they do. That, to me, if you told me like week 4, right, the Vikings, not only were they going to make the playoffs as the 7th seed, but Kirk Cousins wasn't going to be the quarterback of the team, I would look at you like you're insane. Like, what do you mean he's not, like, it's like, what happened? It's like, oh, well.
That doesn't make any sense.
Right, like he's hurt. It's like, who is Josh Dobbs? Josh Dobbs, like the Cardinals, Josh Dobbs? Like, what are we talking about? And yet, it kind of feels like that's possible. And I think it starts here, like, really last week, but I think especially this week, a full week of preparation. What can Dobbs look like in this offense? I think pretty good. Like just from what we saw last week, like his play extension too was huge in that game. And I think that, and his really running in general was huge in the game. I think he had like 70 yards and like 2 touchdowns running. I think it was maybe, or one
Yeah,
touchdown running.
something
Like
like that. A
it
really
was
impressive day on the ground.
unbelievable. Like if he can continue to do that stuff while also operating this offense with a more full playbook, they might be really good, honestly, on offense. And Flores is doing enough on defense of just being a psychopath and just making it basically impossible to consistently do anything against him, because it's like, well, if you hit us on the back end when we do our blitzing, then good for you. But if you don't, we're gonna get you. Like that's kind of what his mentality is. Against Derek Carr, he'll throw the check down, and that's all they'll do. He'll just throw check downs, and they'll get 20 yards on 8 plays and punt the ball. Like that's probably what's gonna happen a lot of the time.
Yeah.
So I will say 24-17 Vikings there. All right, well, I got to talk about Steelers, Packers. I almost went to this game, or planned to go to this game. I chose not to because a lot of reasons. But I'm just going to let you go ahead and start with this one, Tony, because I have a few things to say about it. So
I will not be watching this game.
Yeah, you shouldn't. Don't do it.
I'd recommend the same to everybody who's not a Pittsburgh or a Green Bay fan. It's so weird. These are such weird teams. The Packers are another team that I was really high on going into the year that I am just not enjoying that I was really high on them going into the year. They're off. They're off. I don't know if they're gonna find it this season. I don't know if I'm not willing to throw in the towel on Jordan Love, but man, he had a nice couple games to start, and then things have really fallen off a cliff. The Steelers, on the other hand, all of that can kind of be said about their offense as well, except their offense is started from the bottom and is now kind of trending up. Matt Canada left the booth, and things are at least better. Don't know if they're good, but they're better. And the defense is, just if the Browns and Ravens weren't having the historic seasons they're having right now, we'd be talking about the Steelers as an incredibly elite defense. Their cornerback room just leaves a lot to be desired. Luckily, I don't think Jordan Love and Christian Watson and friends are going to punish you for that. So I think the Steelers are going to win this one relatively handily. I don't think there's going to be a ton of points scored, but I expect the Steelers to be doing the majority of that scoring. So give me the Steelers. I'll give you 24 points. Why not throw you a bone? 24, and we'll go 13 for the Packers. I think their offense just continues to struggle especially with this defensive line and their offensive line situation.
So I'll tell you my score first, and then I'll talk about the team a little bit. So I have 21-10. It's the same scoring margin, just a little bit less points. Steelers, of course. The Packers. So Jordan Love is this very weird combination of aggressive and inefficient that makes the offense impossible, because he has his average depth of target is ginormous this year, and they can't hit any of those throws. So he's throwing the ball down the field to no one a lot of the time. It doesn't go anywhere, or to the other team. And that's what's killing them, is I don't want to close the book on Jordan Love, because I do think he's talented, but his inaccuracy at times and also his decision making late in games has just been difficult to watch. And until they start hitting some of these big throws, because he's throwing them. Like, the one thing I'll give Jordan Love is he is throwing the rock around. Like
he keeps spraying it.
Right. Like, he is not afraid to throw the ball down the field. It just needs to start going into the hands of his receivers more. And if that ever happens, then we're talking about probably a pretty good offense, at least, even if an inefficient and haphazard one. But they're just not hitting anything. The run game, whenever Aaron Jones is running the ball, has been dreadful. Like, AJ Dillon sucks, man. I'm sorry. Like, he's awful.
He's really bad this year.
He has nothing going for him. He's a 230-pound power back with no power right now. Like, I don't understand how this guy has zero power to his game at this point. Like, it makes no sense to me. He looks like he's an injured player out there, and he's not, clearly, because he wouldn't be playing if he was, that injured. And they just have nothing going for them. The offensive line has been injured, of course, again. Bakhtiari just needs to retire at this point. It's just, I'm sorry, it is what it is. It sucks, but he needs to go. Like, they have nothing going for them. And the Steelers are a good enough team to take advantage of a team like this, which is why I do have them winning. But the Steelers are not good either, man. I'm sorry. They're not a good football team. Like, you can sit there and say, okay, the defense, they have a negative 30-point differential right now. Okay, they're 5-3. They are more fraudulent than the freaking Vikings last year. in my eyes so far through 8 games, because like at least with the Vikings, you knew one side of the ball was actually truly elite, where the Steelers defense has nobody in the secondary except Joey Porter Jr. right now because Minka Fitzpatrick's hurt. A big play can happen at any point to this defense. They just haven't had it happen yet, but it's there. Like it's totally possible. And that's what scares me is like in a game like this, where like the Packers will throw the ball down the field. If the safeties aren't ready for it and Love actually hits his receiver in the hands, this could get out of hand all of a sudden, actually, which is the sad part. But I'm going to still pick the Packers to just get kind of rolled over. They're not going to be able to do much. The run game for the Steelers did pick up a lot last week. I'm hoping that continues to be a trend. And maybe sideline Canada's a good coordinator. He's not, but he could be better. Maybe he talks to the guys a little bit Canada. More. Certainly better than Booth Canada, for sure. Yeah, he needs to definitely make sure he has a little place on the sideline just for him moving forward. Commanders, Seahawks. We talked about this a little bit. You were talking about how a blowout loss could be the end of Ron Rivera here. Seahawks need one, man. They've really struggled the past couple weeks on offense, and Geno Smith is not looking the way that we wanted him to look. It's not like he's reverted back to being like a backup quarterback, but it's just been kind of tough sledding in a few of these games this year. You know, started the season off poorly against the Rams. His last game was against I don't even remember who they played last week. Why can't I think of who they played?
Was the Ravens game just this past week?
No, it was the week before. I don't think it was this past week, was it? Or no, maybe it was. No, it was the Ravens game. No, you're right.
Okay.
That Ravens game, that's the game I was thinking of. Horrendous. Just terrible.
I don't know if he played terribly or if he just met a buzzsaw. Because
that's what I'm saying. But this offense just isn't the same, right? Like it's not what we saw last year. And I think for them to get where they want to go, they need to get back to a similar level of play from that, because the defense now is much more capable of actually helping them out this year with the talent they've added to that. Weatherspoon's been awesome. Obviously, they still have Tariq Woolen out there corner. Like they're a team that could be better. I mean, they're still 5-3 right now, I believe. Right? Like it's not like they're a bad team, but I feel like they're still missing that offensive spark. And if they can get it, this would be a week to do it for sure. Against a team that no longer has their top 2 pass rushers. So, what do you think of this game?
This is an interesting one. The Seahawks are a much, much better team.
They are,
but they're not playing their best ball. And as much as I think the Commanders aren't playing their best ball either, and just traded away their 2 of their most impactful defenders, they're not playing as bad as they should be. I guess is a way to say it. Yep. Like they have a little bit of a spark. The Seahawks are super banged up, but it looks like the majority of their guys are going to play.
Mm-hmm.
Like Charles Cross is going to play, so you don't have to worry about Jason Peters starting at left tackle.
That would have been awesome, but also scary.
Yeah. The Commanders are a tough team to read. Zach is always in here supporting the Commanders, and we're both tearing them down. Right. And it seems like every time that happens, the Commanders do actually pull it out. And I'd be so interested to hear what Zach has to say about this game. Because if he's optimistic, then I should probably change my pick over to the Commanders. Right. But I do think the Seahawks are just a much better team. And at some point, I think trading away your 2 of your best your 2 starting edge rushers has to impact the score at some point. So I think this is the week where it catches up with them. I don't know if it's a blowout. I actually don't think it's a blowout, but I think the Seahawks win by a touchdown. So give me just 28-21. Yeah, 28-21. Nice standard even score there.
I'm going to say 28-24 Seahawks. I think the Commanders, the thing about them is when Sam Howell is actually slinging the rock around and it works, they're really good. I think they're really fun. When he's doing it and it doesn't work, they're dreadful. He's kind of I feel like I don't want to call him Ryan Fitzpatrick yet, but he
got that style.
He does. He just he makes some throws every week where I'm like, damn, that is a franchise quarterback throw. And then 2 plays later, he throws a ball that's just so stupid, right? Just unbelievably stupid. Or he takes 12 sacks in a row or something. It's just, I see the talent level and I'm like, man, it's hard to, it'd be hard for me not to want this guy to work out and hard for me not to try to get this guy to work out. But he's got a long way to go still to be a consistent starter. And this is just one of those teams, if he has a hot game, they could beat almost anybody. I mean, they almost beat the Eagles already this year, right? That's that's just who they are. And like you said, if he was optimistic, if Zach was saying like, oh no, they'll because he loves the Seahawks too. If he's like, oh no, the Commanders, I think they can win, I'd be like, man, maybe they can win this game. And I don't know, but no, I'll say 28-24. I think the Seahawks get some of their mojo back offensively, but Sam Howell makes some big plays to kind of keep them in it. But let's get to our must-watch games. This is definitely the most fun part for us here. We have 3 really, really good games. Let's start with 49ers Jaguars. The Niners are coming off 3 consecutive losses. We're starting to get to the point where it's like, man, this is what this team looks like when everything isn't perfect for them offensively, what Brock Purdy looks like. And I guess a Jaguars team that is 6-2 now, it's tough. It's going to be a tough game. I really do think it's going to be a tough game. And I feel like it's still hard for me to really feel good about either team in this game, like winning. But what do you have on this game at this point? Because I'm curious.
I think there's a lot of similar feelings between like 49ers and Bills fans of like the sky actually hasn't fallen. It's just a stretch of bad luck. And so like the 49ers, right? They've just had terrible turnover luck these past few games. Now, a lot of that has been Brock Purdy just throwing it intentionally to the other team, channeling his inner Jimmy Garoppolo. But a lot of it just has been bad luck. Yeah. And they're much healthier now. Yes. The really cool matchup I want to see in this game is that the Jaguars defense has low-key been incredible this year, especially their run defense. And the 49ers offense, I mean, we know what they can be. Despite the 3-game skid, they still are who they are. They can run with the best of them. And with all of their weapons healthy, Deebo Samuel back, really interested to see how they stress this defense. And like, we're going to find out if this defense can win in January, they're going to be able to show up on Sunday. Really, really excited for that specific matchup. I do think the 49ers get right in this one, despite the Jags being on a 5-game win streak. I think they're very similarly. They both play weird. They both play weird games. The Jaguars offense loves a weird game. The 49ers offense has been loving a weird game. I just trust the playmakers on the 49ers offense more than I trust the playmakers on the Jags offense. And so I'm going to take 49ers 28-24. I do think it's going to be a really fun game. I do think both of these teams are going to be very relevant down the stretch. So nice little window into the postseason with this one.
Yeah, I think you kind of touched on it. I think the Jaguars' key to winning this game is they have to force Purdy to put the ball in the air. Like you have to force him to actually have to drop back and do a normal passing game. So if you can, with your run defense the way it's playing, if you can get McCaffrey to a point where like he's not breaking off the 7, 8, 9-yard runs to keep them ahead of the chains, that's when you're going to have an opportunity, especially because I don't know if he's back, because I think he missed the Steelers game, but Andre Sisco at safety, he's a guy that can pick up.
Is he back? That would matter.
If he's back, I want to say he is, but I don't know for sure. I thought he might be back because that's something I would want to know. Yeah, I forgot to check before we got started. But if he is back, that's a huge thing. If he isn't,
he's questionable.
Okay.
Limited all week with a hamstring. Okay. Same with Tyson Campbell. I didn't realize he was on the injury report.
I didn't know he was. Yeah. Point is, if they have a healthy secondary, or at least a secondary that's out there fully, if Purdy has to put the ball in the air, Sisco's the type of player that would pick him off 2 times in a game. Like that. That's just kind of like that's who he is. So I think that matters a lot. But assuming that those guys are either banged up or not fully healthy, it does give the Niners a huge edge because I think Purdy's still a good enough passer in this offense that if he does have to put the ball in the air 35 times, it doesn't guarantee they're in trouble. But we've seen when they've had to do that the last couple of weeks that it just isn't the same, right? Like not with everybody fully healthy. So I still pick the Niners. Like you said, I'm going to say 27-21. I think it's going to be a good game, but Jaguars prove that they are certainly in the category of a really, really good team in the NFL this year. Browns Ravens. I don't even know where to start with this because like we already saw this game, but it was with DTR at quarterback and the Browns weren't really trying to win. It felt like, they're just kind of conceding that they weren't going to win this game. This was different, right? Now they do feel like, okay, this is our chance to go in and prove that we can compete with the top of the AFC, specifically in our division. I'm going to let you start with this one because I have some thoughts on this.
A lot of great showmanship by me on this one. We kicked off the show with me saying defense is back.
Yes.
Defense is fucking back, and this game is why. The 2 best defenses in the league just going toe to toe. We've already seen it once this year. It was a hell of a game. It was a lot of fun. The Ravens are better. The
Yes.
Ravens are way better. This is so like if anybody after the past 2 weeks still had reservations about the Ravens, they're about to be erased. I think that this defense is going to just continue to be themselves, and Deshaun Watson ain't hurting that. Like they're going to shut them down completely. The offense, I think Todd Monken getting to see this defense again, I think they're going to have some answers. Because as much as we talk about the Ravens defense, their new coordinator on offense is doing a damn good job himself too. So I just, you've got two teams with elite defenses. You've got one team with a borderline elite offense and the other team with nothing. And that's really what this one comes down to. I think the Ravens make a statement here. I think they fully arrive. They're going to be at the top of everybody's power rankings, everybody's Super Bowl lists after this week. Who knows how the rest of the season goes, but week 10 is going to be kind to the Ravens. Give me 24-3. I really think they're going to just shut Cleveland up on offense.
So I have a different score prediction, but a similar feeling. So I have 28-13 Ravens. I think that they're going to have some success on offense, more so in the first game. And I think the Browns will have a few plays here and there just because the play calling is very good. And I think if Watson hits a couple of his throws, there's going to be opportunities there. But like you said, these teams, despite the fact that they're both very similar in terms of how they win defensively, just being a defensive football team, Lamar Jackson is the deciding factor, right? And he's going to be the deciding factor against teams that are similar caliber of defense to the Ravens, right? And most times, I would say almost every time, except for maybe a few specific situations, Lamar Jackson is going to be the best player on the field for either team, especially offensively. That gives them an edge over teams like the Browns, where Deshaun Watson simply doesn't have the same ability he used to. This was a game where if this was, the Deshaun Watson we saw in Houston, that there would be more of a toss-up because he is a guy that could do some of the stuff that Lamar does right now. Not anymore. And it's really hard to pick.
Not that guy anymore.
Yeah, just not. It's really hard to pick against the Ravens right now with the way that they're playing on both sides of the ball. Todd Monken is, like I said, I talked about this earlier, giving Lamar an actual NFL passing offense, and look what happens. Holy crap. Oh, he's good? Yeah, we know. Like this is the thing that frustrates me too as a Steelers fan is I do a lot of different shows. Like I do my shows with Still Curtain, and I do some stuff for Pro Sports Fans app I've talked about before. And there's just a lot of Steelers fans who still seem to think that Lamar Jackson is a freaking running back. And I'm like, listen, I don't know what else you have to say. Like he hasn't. That has not been something you should say about him really ever, but especially since his rookie season. More so than ever as a passer, you can see how developed he is as a thrower of the football. Some of this, like I would recommend looking this up on Twitter. I think it was Brian Baldinger was showing these clips. Some of the arm angles and throws this guy makes is stupid. Like Mahomes does crazy stuff. Lamar might have more in his bag of just being able to just flick his wrist and get the ball to a certain spot under any circumstance.
Say that's valid.
More than any other quarterback in the league. His arm talent is so underrated because he doesn't have the same like actual flamethrower arm that like Allen and Mahomes like. But as far as controlling the football and putting it places and like with just flicking it down the field, it's phenomenal to watch. I'm sorry, it just is. Like if you're a Steelers fan, it sucks. He still hasn't done much against us this past time was just because his receivers forgot how to play football. Don't expect that at the end of the year. Don't be ready for that to not be the case at the end of the year, guys. Just throwing that out there. But again, I will take the Ravens 28-13. Last game. And I would have never expected coming into this year that the Texans half of the year would be in this situation where it is a must-watch game and they're in it. Texans-Bengals. The Bengals are back and the Texans are coming. What do you think about this one, Tony?
This is it's a must-watch game. It's going to be a super, super fun game to watch. I think with both offenses doing what they're doing right now is why it's going to be must-watch. Because like both teams have some of the best defensive coordinators in the NFL. Like these are two of the best. They certainly two of the top 10. And they're going to be able to cook up some stuff, but these are two offenses that operate similarly. Quarterbacks that operate very similarly, just in the always doing it. Like it's a terrible like description of what they're doing, but they're just always doing it. You know, like a play needs to be made, they're doing it. Crunch time, you're down 46 seconds. You watch Baker Mayfield go and score a touchdown on your defense. He's just doing it. They just do it. It's crazy. that like I think this is a comp that never really like I was thinking of CJ Stroud as similar to like Jared Goff with some extra stuff, right? Like,
Right. That's
but
what I always thought too. Yeah.
stylistically they are similar, Burrow and Stroud, and just it's hard to quantify, it's hard to measure, it's hard to describe, but they're just always there making the play when it needs to be made. And then the downfield playmaking that we're going to see. It sucks that we're not going to get T. Higgins in this game. Really hope we get Jamar Chase.
Yeah,
but even if it's Trent Irwin and Andre Yosevas and
Yosevas, yeah.
Okay, yeah, I almost didn't butcher it, but I butchered it.
And then guy.
Charlie Jones, Tyler Boyd, like we know Burrow's going to be out there slinging it. Stroud is going to be doing the same. Even if this ends up being a lower scoring game because of those defensive coordinators, we are going to get some incredible all 22 review of this next week. It's going to be just beautiful to watch. Like just stay glued to the timeline. You know, everybody's going to be posting just incredible clips of these guys doing their work. So yeah, really fun quarterback duel. Would not have expected Texans Bengals to be on my radar this deep into the season as a game that mattered. But the other aspect, just beyond the fun of the quarterback duel, is this game matters.
It does. It matters.
The Texans are sitting there, right? Like there's a heavy pack right in the hunt graphic, and they are firmly a part of that. And they play in a weaker division, so you think they're going to stack up some wins throughout the rest of the season. Knocking off a team like the Bengals would go a long way. And then the Bengals, that I don't think anybody's worried about them missing the playoffs, despite them being in like the 7 seed right now.
Right.
Like, even if they lose this, I still think
they'll get
healthier.
They're on,
and they're going to be just fine. They're going to make I trust them to make the playoffs more than the Bills. Obviously, like they're going to be just fine. But just this game has the potential to shake up a lot of the picture. The graphic is going to change significantly based on the results of this game, and that's really exciting. Add in the QB duel, and it's must watch TV. I didn't actually give a prediction there.
Yeah.
I'm just excited to watch the football, man. I don't have thoughts, but I do think the Bengals win this one. I think if they had T. Higgins, I'd really pick them probably by like 10 points, just because there still is a gap there.
Right.
But with T. Higgins banged up, and yeah, the Texans are super banged up, but they seem to be able to survive that.
They do. Yeah.
Give me the Bengals. 28-24. I've hit that a couple different times, but it feels like a good score. So we're gonna stick with that. 28-24. Give me the Texans covering. Give me a fun quarterback duel. This is gonna be a fun game.
So I want to start my talk about this because I echo a lot of what you said. Right. Let's a hypothetical here. So let's say CJ Stroud goes into Cincinnati, because I think the Bengals are at home, and against Lou Anarumo defense, puts up 28 plus points and they win the game, and he's a big part of why they do that. Do you think, because I've heard this thrown around a little bit already, do you think that he should enter the MVP conversation as a rookie?
It all depends on what the conversation is. Like, do I think he should get votes? No, not a chance.
Okay.
Even if we're not going to, like, the star quarterbacks are playing damn good football. They're not playing the quality of football we're used to seeing. Defense is back, going back to that. But they're playing good enough football to be worthy of the MVP awards. Tack onto that you also have 2 offensive skill players that are deserving of the award if it weren't just a quarterback's award. You have Tyreek Hill and AJ Brown should both be ahead of CJ Stroud still. So people are probably going to discuss it if he does this, and that's fair, because discussion is discussion and people need content to talk about on TV. But if I see somebody actually vote for him, I'm going to be really hopeful that person doesn't get a vote ever again. Like, let's just acknowledge really exciting, fun football without having to stake an award to it.
Right. Yeah. The reason I asked about it is because, like, if let's say he throws 3 touchdowns, no picks, and like 300 yards, right? I think he'd be up to like 17 touchdowns, 1 interception. I forget how many yards per game at that point. Like, on the surface, like, and he'd be quarterbacking a Texans team that no one expected anything from, to a 5-4 record through halfway through the season. On the surface, that feels like a candidacy. Now, again, the problem is there's other players that are good enough and have more actual like star power to them that they're going to be ahead of him. But I think it's just the fact that it's even worth discussing is kind of insane to me. And that's kind
It's
of why I
incredibly
wanted to bring
impressive
it
that
up.
we're having this
Yeah,
conversation, right?
that's why I wanted to bring it up, because I feel like the fact that it's even possible to talk about it is hilarious to me, especially when you factor in everything we thought about the Texans going into the year. So, but
Yeah, I will
yeah.
say next year I'm going to be glued to the like preseason MVP odds
See how
because
high
they're
he is up
probably
there.
going to launch him out at like plus 5,000 or some
Yeah,
absurd number,
right,
and I'm going
right.
to eat it up
Oh yeah,
because like
for
it's
sure.
worth doing at that
It
point,
is, yeah,
like
it is at that point, yeah. But I do so as far as my prediction, I actually think so like we know T Higgins isn't playing. If if Jamar Chase plays, nice one, Shane. And he's actually like effective. I do think that the Bengals will win. They'll be able to do enough to win this game. Like I said, the 28-24 you said. I feel like if Chase doesn't play, it's not that Burrow won't be good or anything like that, but I feel like it opens the door for the Bengals to have a couple drives that don't go their way and the Texans take advantage. It's kind of a cop out because I don't know if it's confirmed if Chase is playing, but assuming Chase is playing and actually is able to play well, give me the Bengals 27-24. If Chase doesn't play, I might flip it to the Texans winning like 24-21. Honestly, like I feel like it could be enough of a swing there. So I'll say basically it's pick 'em for me. I know that's a cop out, but this is a really good game, and I'm just gonna watch it and not really worry about it too much. So, but that'll do it for us this week. Any other thoughts you want to throw out there, Tony, before we get out of here?
No. So I flex out of every primetime game. The
Yes,
primetime football this week
yes.
ain't going to be good. Hopefully, like I do think the Bills will give you a shootout. So if you're like offense, that you'll be able to see that. But
Right.
flex out of every primetime game ever.
Yeah, I agree. They haven't done it yet. They're gonna have to at some point. If they haven't done it to this point, I don't know what they're looking for or waiting to see, but whatever. Yeah, just I agree with you there. So we'll see you guys next week. Enjoy this week of football. This is a really good one. A lot of games that at least should be fun, if not important for the rest of the year. So at least there's that. So again, enjoy that. Watch Red Zone if you have it. It'll be fun to watch this week, especially. There's gonna be a lot of stuff happening in the 1 o'clock game. So, but we will see you guys next week.